Most people frame wealth and happiness as opposites. They imagine a scale. The more money you have, the less joy you feel. The more joy you chase, the less money you'll earn. It's the classic trap, the wealthy but miserable executive versus the poor but smiling monk. The world loves this dichotomy because it's simple, but Niccolo Machiavelli would laugh at this simplicity. To him, happiness and wealth were never enemies. They were instruments, different tools to bend human behavior, different masks that rulers wore to control those beneath them. So, let's begin here. The question is not, do you have to choose between wealth and happiness? The Machiavellian question is, whose happiness and whose wealth are we talking about, and who controls both? Because once you see wealth and happiness as currencies that can be manipulated, the conversation transforms. It's no longer about sacrifice, it's about strategy. Rule 1: happiness is never free, it is designed. Modern society romanticizes happiness as something natural, spontaneous, organic. We are told it lives in sunsets, in laughter, in gratitude. But Machiavelli would say, happiness is not a gift of nature, it is a product of design. Rulers, corporations, and institutions craft environments where certain behaviors produce certain satisfactions. A peasant in Renaissance Florence was happy when he ate bread after a day's work. A merchant was happy when his trade routes expanded. A prince was happy when his rivals feared his name. Happiness was always contextual, always engineered by circumstance. Fast forward to today. Social media engineers dopamine spikes with likes and comments. Luxury brands engineer status happiness by attaching identity to purchases. Governments engineer national pride with ceremonies and symbols. None of this is accidental. All of it is structured. And here is the Machiavellian truth. If your happiness is designed by another man's system, then it is not yours. It is a leash. That's why Machiavelli would caution, never chase happiness blindly. Ask instead, who benefits when I feel this way? Who controls the source of this joy? Because if your peace depends on their system, they own you. Rule 2. Wealth is not opposite to happiness. It is its most dangerous illusion. People believe money buys happiness. Others insist it doesn't. Both are naive. The Machiavellian position is sharper. Money doesn't buy happiness. It buys the performance of happiness. That performance can fool others, and more dangerously, it can fool you. Think of the man who buys the car, the house, the watch. For a moment, he feels elation, not because of the object itself, but because of the perception attached to it. He is happy because others will now measure him differently. The problem is not that this happiness is false, it is that it is fleeting, fragile, and dependent. The moment the admiration fades, so does the joy. The car becomes metal, the watch becomes gears, the house becomes walls. What remains is emptiness, disguised as luxury. Machiavelli observed rulers who lost their kingdoms not because they lacked wealth, but because they confused the applause of the crowd with loyalty. The same applies to individuals today. You can drown in riches and still starve for meaning. Wealth is not the opposite of happiness. It is its greatest counterfeit. Rule 3. True happiness lies not in pleasure, but in power over pleasure. The common man seeks happiness by consuming pleasures, food, sex, entertainment, comfort, but each pleasure decays quickly, requiring constant renewal. Machiavelli would say, this is the behavior of the weak. The powerful do not consume pleasure, they command it. They create the conditions under which pleasure flows to them without effort. Think of the difference between the guest and the host. The guest eats, drinks, and enjoys. But when the feast is over, he is forgotten. The host, however, owns the stage. He controls when the feast begins, what is served, and who is invited. His pleasure is not just in consumption, but in orchestration. That is real happiness, not chasing the next high, but structuring life so that satisfaction is a byproduct of your authority. In the modern world, this translates to design. Don't build a life where you chase vacations to escape misery. Build a life where daily discipline, influence, and autonomy produce satisfaction naturally. Happiness is not about escape, it is about architecture. Rule 4. Wealth without wisdom breeds dependence, not joy. Consider this. Most lottery winners end up miserable, not because money is cursed, but because they lack the wisdom to turn sudden wealth into lasting autonomy. Machiavelli would remind us, wealth amplifies. It exposes strengths and weaknesses. A disciplined man with wealth builds influence. A fool with wealth builds addictions. Happiness, therefore, does not come from possession, but from control. Control over impulses, over relationships, over environment. Without discipline, wealth becomes a trap, chains disguised as gifts. That's why so many rich people live in quiet desperation. They are not free. They are servants of their own lifestyle. The Machiavellian lesson is clear. Never envy the man with riches. Envy the man whose riches cannot enslave him, for he can walk away from both wealth and poverty with the same calm face. That serenity is power disguised as happiness. Rule 5. Happiness is political, not personal. This may sound cynical, but Machiavelli knew it to be true. Happiness is never merely individual. It is collective, and it is political. A ruler's survival depended on the happiness of the people, not because he cared about their joy, but because discontent bred rebellion. The illusion of happiness kept order. Festivals, parades, holidays, games, all were tools to pacify and distract. Now, look at the modern world. Companies hand out perks, free coffee, office gyms, flexible hours, not because they care about joy, but because happy employees are productive employees. Governments promote optimism, slogans, and national pride, not because they are moral, but because stability requires contentment. Happiness is not personal. It is a public technology of control. And here lies the Machiavellian choice. If you want happiness, do not seek it in isolation. Learn to read how happiness is distributed around you. Are you being fed contentment to keep you quiet? Or are you designing your own structure of joy that makes you ungovernable? That difference determines whether your happiness is yours or theirs. Rule 6. Wealth and happiness intersect at freedom, but few know how to reach it. Here is the core. Happiness without wealth often leads to fragility. Wealth without happiness often leads to emptiness. The Machiavellian solution is not to choose one over the other, but to fuse them at a single point: freedom. Freedom is the capacity to walk away from a job, from a relationship, from a system. It is the ability to say no without fear. Happiness that cannot survive without wealth is weakness. Wealth that collapses without happiness is slavery. But when both serve freedom, you become untouchable. Machiavelli would argue, don't chase wealth to feel rich. Don't chase happiness to feel good. Chase structure, autonomy, and strategy. Then, let wealth and happiness flow as shadows of your design. Because at the end of the day, neither gold nor joy is the real goal. The real goal is presence, the kind that commands respect, even in silence, the kind that radiates confidence, even in loss. That is the intersection where wealth and happiness dissolve into something higher: sovereignty. Rule 7. The pursuit of happiness can be a trap. The modern world tells you to follow your bliss. It preaches that happiness should be your compass, that every decision should be guided by joy. But Machiavelli would laugh at such advice. Why? Because the pursuit of happiness, as commonly understood, enslaves you. Think of the man who chases happiness through travel. He is constantly seeking the next destination, the next escape, believing that the next place will bring peace. But happiness, built on pursuit, is like chasing the horizon. You never reach it. The moment you arrive, the glow fades, and the cycle begins again. The man is not free, he is addicted. The same applies to careers, relationships, and possessions. If your happiness depends on perpetual pursuit, you will always be restless, always fragile, always vulnerable to manipulation. Machiavelli's warning is sharp. Do not chase happiness. Build conditions where happiness appears uninvited. Pursuit is weakness. Architecture is power. Rule 8. Wealth is a test, not a solution. People believe wealth solves problems, but Machiavelli would argue wealth reveals problems. It does not eliminate insecurities, it magnifies them. A poor man hides his envy quietly. A rich man broadcasts it with extravagance. A poor man hides his vices in the shadows. A rich man funds them until they consume him. Wealth tests character like fire tests metal. It shows the cracks. It shows the weakness. This is why so many who gain sudden riches collapse faster than those who never had them. They think money changed their life, but in truth, it only exposed the life they were already living. The Machiavellian lesson is this: never ask if wealth will make you happy. Ask whether your character can survive the test wealth brings. For if you cannot master yourself, no amount of money will rescue you. Rule 9. Happiness without struggle is fragile. Another illusion of the modern world is the promise of effortless happiness. Advertisements sell comfort, gurus sell peace, influencers sell lifestyles free of struggle. But Machiavelli would remind you, true happiness cannot exist without resistance. Why? Because humans measure joy in contrast. A victory feels good only because defeat exists. Food tastes delicious only because hunger sharpens it. Comfort feels valuable only because discomfort is possible. Remove struggle and happiness loses its intensity. It becomes a dull background noise, barely noticed, easily lost. This is why rulers of the past ensured their people had both festivals and famines, triumphs and tragedies. Struggle kept the people alive, and relief kept them loyal. The same principle applies to your own life. If you seek happiness without ever embracing struggle, your joy will always be fragile, easily stolen by the smallest inconvenience. Machiavelli's prescription: don't run from struggle, design it. Choose challenges that harden you, tasks that stretch you, goals that sharpen you. Then happiness becomes a byproduct of victory, not a fleeting gift. Rule 10. Wealth and happiness are weapons. Use them strategically. Here is the Machiavellian twist. Wealth and happiness are not simply experiences. They are weapons. They influence behavior, shape loyalty, and bend people's choices. A leader can buy loyalty with wealth. He can secure obedience with happiness. A ruler who pays his people but keeps them miserable risks revolt. A ruler who keeps his people joyous but broke risks desperation. Balance both, and you own their souls. Now ask yourself, how do you wield wealth and happiness in your own circle? Do you give money to friends only to resent their ingratitude? Do you offer happiness in relationships only to watch people abuse your kindness? The Machiavellian answer is to give both strategically. Wealth should come with invisible strings. Happiness should come with boundaries. You do not offer them as gifts. You deploy them as levers. Because here's the truth. If you make people believe you are the source of their comfort, they will chain themselves to you. They will censor themselves. They will serve you without ever realizing it. That is how power is maintained without force. Rule 11. The weak seek happiness. The strong create meaning. This is where Machiavelli separates fools from strategists. Happiness is temporary. It rises and falls with moods, circumstances, accidents. Meaning, however, is durable. It gives weight to suffering and turns setbacks into fuel. The weak chase happiness like moths chasing light, burning themselves on every false flame. The strong build meaning, and happiness becomes a shadow that follows naturally. Consider the difference. The man who lives for happiness panics when pain arrives. The man who lives for meaning transforms pain into progress. Which one is freer? Which one is more powerful? Machiavelli would argue that the one who endures storms without breaking is closer to real joy than the one who avoids storms entirely. So, stop asking, "Am I happy?" Start asking, "Am I building meaning that outlasts happiness?" For meaning produces resilience, and resilience produces the deepest form of joy, the kind that cannot be stolen. Rule 12. Wealth cannot buy happiness, but it can buy time. Time is the true currency. Money can vanish, happiness can fade, but time is the one resource no man can replenish. Here lies the hidden power of wealth. Not in objects, not in possessions, not even in influence. In time. A wealthy man can buy back his hours. He can hire others to handle tasks, create systems to replace labor, build autonomy where the poor are trapped in necessity. This does not guarantee happiness, but it creates the conditions where happiness can exist. The poor man may find joy in small things, but his time is constantly consumed by survival. The wealthy man, if disciplined, can spend his time on mastery, relationships, freedom. Machiavelli's warning is sharp. If wealth does not buy you time, it enslaves you. If your riches only create more labor, more stress, more dependency, you are not rich, you are just expensive. Wealth must convert into freedom of time, or it is meaningless. Rule 13. Happiness without autonomy is dependence. Imagine a man who is happy only when his partner loves him. Imagine a woman who is happy only when her boss approves. Imagine a child who is happy only when given toys. This is not happiness, it is dependence. Machiavelli would say, never tether your joy to someone else's decisions. If your happiness depends on approval, you are a slave to that approval. If your peace depends on circumstances, you are fragile. The true Machiavellian builds happiness from autonomy. He does not wait for others to feed him joy. He constructs systems, routines, disciplines, values that produce it, regardless of outside validation. For autonomy is the seed of both wealth and happiness. With autonomy, wealth grows because you can say no to dependence. With autonomy, happiness grows because you do not fear its loss. Without autonomy, both wealth and happiness are illusions, easily stolen by those who hold the leash. Rule 14. The intersection is not wealth versus happiness, it is control. This is the brutal conclusion of Machiavelli's perspective. The world frames wealth and happiness as choices, as if they stand apart, but the Machiavellian sees through the illusion. Both wealth and happiness are mirrors. They reflect not what you have, but who controls you. If you own wealth but not autonomy, you are controlled. If you own happiness but not independence, you are controlled. True mastery is when you use both as tools, never as masters. You don't live for wealth, you make wealth live for you. You don't live for happiness, you make happiness orbit your strategy. That is the Machiavellian way. Because in the end, wealth without happiness is empty. Happiness without wealth is fragile. But both, when fused under control, become sovereignty. And sovereignty is the one prize worth chasing. Rule 15. The world sells happiness as a distraction. Look closely at the machinery of modern life. Every advertisement, every billboard, every algorithm whispers the same message. Buy this and you will be happy. The economy is not built on goods. It is built on selling the illusion of happiness. A phone is not a device. It is connection. A car is not transport. It is status. A house is not shelter. It is success. Machiavelli would see through this instantly. He would say, the rulers of today are not kings or popes, but corporations. They don't tax your gold, they tax your attention. And they do it by weaponizing your hunger for happiness. Every like, every purchase, every trend is a leash. The more you chase happiness through consumption, the easier you are to control. The Machiavellian response? Stop asking, does this make me happy? Ask instead, who profits from this happiness? If the answer is someone else, you are being played. Rule 16. Wealth cannot protect you from misery, but it can redefine it. One of the most dangerous lies about wealth is that it erases misery. The truth is harsher. Wealth does not erase misery, it upgrades it. The poor man fears eviction. The rich man fears betrayal. The poor man suffers hunger. The rich man suffers envy. The poor man feels shame and scarcity. The rich man feels shame and weakness. Machiavelli understood this well. He watched princes who commanded armies yet could not sleep at night. Their misery was not gone. It had evolved. And here lies the deeper lesson. Wealth does not solve the human condition. It merely changes the shape of suffering. So if you dream that riches will make you invincible, you are deluded. Instead, study your relationship to misery. Learn how to suffer with dignity, how to carry burdens without collapse. Then wealth, when it comes, cannot corrupt you. Happiness is not found in the absence of pain, but in your mastery of it. Rule 17. Happiness is not pleasure, it is control over desire. Consider this. Pleasure is easy to buy. Food, drugs, entertainment, sex, luxury, they all deliver quick bursts of joy. But Machiavelli would remind us, the man who is ruled by his pleasures is weak. He is predictable, controllable, exploitable. Offer him comfort, and he bends. Threaten his indulgence, and he obeys. True happiness, therefore, is not drowning in desire, it is mastering it. The man who can walk away from temptation without fear is the one who commands respect. For if nothing owns you, not lust, not greed, not envy, then no one can bribe you. That kind of happiness is not fragile. It is sovereign. This is why monks in poverty often look freer than kings in palaces. The monk may lack wealth, but he controls desire. The king may own everything, but if he cannot resist his cravings, he is a servant. The Machiavellian lesson: the happiest man is not the one who has the most, but the one who cannot be bought. Rule 18. Wealth without secrecy invites predators. Show the world your wealth, and you invite hunters. Machiavelli understood this in politics. The ruler who flaunts his treasure paints a target on his own chest. Rivals calculate, allies envy, servants plot. Wealth, when visible, is vulnerability. The same applies today. Social media parades riches, but Machiavelli would see that not as strength, but as exposure. The moment others know what you have, they begin to scheme about how to take it or how to use it against you. Happiness, on the other hand, cannot be stolen if it is rooted in autonomy. No thief can steal your discipline, your resilience, your ability to rebuild. That is why Machiavelli would teach: let your wealth be invisible, but let your strength be undeniable. Make others uncertain of what you possess, but certain of who you are. That way, their envy has nothing solid to aim at. Rule 19. Happiness can be engineered through scarcity. Here is one of Machiavelli's darkest insights. People value what they fear losing. Happiness thrives not when everything is abundant, but when something feels rare. A ruler who gave his people endless bread would soon be hated. Why? Because abundance dulls gratitude. But if he gave bread only during famine, he would be worshipped as a savior. The same principle applies to your life. Endless indulgence kills joy. Scarcity sharpens it. If you want to preserve happiness, design cycles of absence and reward. Delay gratification. Withhold indulgence. Make pleasure rare so it regains its edge. That is how you transform ordinary comforts into extraordinary joys. Rule 20. Wealth is the loudest signal of weakness when flaunted. Why do people flaunt wealth? To appear powerful. But Machiavelli would say, the moment you must display power, you reveal that you do not truly have it. The man who posts every luxury purchase is not signaling wealth, he is signaling insecurity. He is begging for validation. The powerful move differently. They do not flaunt. They position. They let their silence breed uncertainty. Their wealth is not measured in watches, but in how calmly they can walk away from any deal, any insult, any offer. True wealth is composure, and composure is the root of happiness. Rule 21. The intersection of wealth and happiness is leverage. Most think wealth buys freedom. Others think happiness is freedom. Both are wrong. Freedom comes from leverage, the ability to make choices without fear of collapse. Leverage is when your income flows from multiple streams you control. Leverage is when your joy is rooted in disciplines no one can touch. Machiavelli's brilliance was in seeing that both wealth and happiness are valuable only when they create leverage over others and over yourself. Wealth without leverage is liability. Happiness without leverage is delusion. But fuse them, and you become dangerous. You smile because you are untouchable. You build riches that cannot be stolen. That fusion is the closest thing to real power. Rule 22. Happiness is a weapon when it disarms others. We underestimate the strategic power of joy. Machiavelli would not. A happy man in the face of difficulty unsettles enemies. A calm smile in the middle of conflict confuses rivals. Happiness, when disciplined, is not just personal, it is tactical. Imagine negotiating with someone who cannot be rattled. Imagine fighting a man who laughs when struck. Imagine opposing a leader whose people sing in poverty. Happiness, in these cases, is not weakness. It is intimidation. Because it signals non-attachment, it signals that nothing can break you. That is why the Machiavellian does not merely pursue happiness, he weaponizes it. Rule 23. Wealth should not be chased, it should be designed. Chasing wealth is like chasing shadows. It keeps you running without direction. Machiavelli would insist, do not chase money, build systems, create structures. Establish positions where money flows to you as a natural consequence of your influence. When money is chased, it controls you. When money is designed, you control it. And when you control it, wealth becomes a silent engine that powers happiness without obsession. Rule 24. Happiness is fragile when shared too loudly. There is a strange paradox. The more openly people proclaim their happiness, the more fragile it often is. Look at social media smiles plastered across curated images, captions screaming about joy. But beneath the display, many of those lives are hollow. Why? Because real happiness does not need an audience. Machiavelli would warn, every time you show your happiness too loudly, you give others power. Envious rivals will plot to spoil it. Manipulators will learn how to attack it. Worse, you begin to depend on applause to confirm your joy. True happiness does not seek validation. It hides. It grows in silence. It thrives in privacy. What the world cannot see, it cannot spoil. Rule 25. Wealth without inner wealth is poverty in disguise. Gold in the vault, jewels in the safe, houses on the hill, none of it matters if your mind is bankrupt. The poor man who owns resilience is richer than the millionaire who collapses under stress. The ruler who commands himself commands more than the one who merely commands armies. Machiavelli's message is merciless. Wealth without inner mastery is not strength, it is ornament. You can dress poverty in silk, but it remains poverty. The true measure of wealth is whether you can endure storms, betrayals, losses, and remain unbroken. That kind of wealth no thief can steal, no market can crash, no ruler can tax. Rule 26. Happiness must be earned to be trusted. We distrust what comes too easily. If happiness is handed to us without effort, it feels cheap, temporary, unreal. This is why so many who inherit comfort end up restless, reckless, dissatisfied. They have not paid the price of joy, so they do not value it. Machiavelli would advise, happiness must be earned to be believed. Through labor, through sacrifice, through mastery. It is the struggle that forges the steel of gratitude. Without it, happiness is not trusted. It feels like a trick, a mirage. So do not wish for effortless happiness. Wish for happiness that emerges after battle. That kind of joy cannot be dismissed. It is carved into the soul. Rule 27. Wealth creates enemies. Happiness creates silent rivals. When you become wealthy, enemies emerge openly. They covet what you own. They resent your position. They plot against you. But happiness is more subtle. A happy man does not always attract open enemies. He attracts silent rivals. They may not attack you directly, but they compare themselves to you. They measure their lives against yours, and their quiet resentment festers. This is why you must be careful, not only with how you display wealth, but also with how you display happiness. Too much brightness blinds others and breeds contempt. A wise Machiavellian dims the flame just enough. He protects himself by never provoking envy unnecessarily. Wealth and happiness, both, should be wielded with restraint, like daggers hidden beneath the cloak. Rule 28. Wealth is borrowed. Happiness must be claimed. Everything you call wealth, your house, your money, your assets, is temporary. It can be seized, taxed, inflated away, stolen, or inherited by strangers. Wealth is borrowed from time. You hold it only until time takes it back. Happiness, however, must be claimed. No one can hand it to you. It cannot be bought, stored, or transferred. It emerges from within, built by choices, values, and discipline. This is why the wise man invests less in possessions and more in practices. Wealth is borrowed. Happiness, once built correctly, is owned. And ownership is the foundation of freedom. Rule 29. Both wealth and happiness must serve power. For Machiavelli, the question was never whether wealth or happiness was good or bad. The only question was, do they serve power? Wealth that weakens you is poison. Happiness that distracts you is weakness. But wealth that strengthens your autonomy and happiness that fortifies your resilience, these are assets of power. Do not idolize either. Do not become their servant. Bend both to your strategy. If wealth makes you independent, keep it. If it enslaves you, discard it. If happiness sharpens your strength, cultivate it. If it blinds you with complacency, cut it off. That is the ruthless wisdom of Machiavelli. Nothing is sacred but power. Everything else must serve. Rule 30. The final choice is not wealth versus happiness. It is weakness versus strength. The world frames the question as if you must choose wealth or happiness. But Machiavelli unmasks the false dichotomy. The real choice is weakness or strength. Weakness chases wealth desperately. Weakness clings to happiness obsessively. Strength bends both into tools. Do you really have to choose between wealth and happiness? The real choice is whether you will be owned by them or whether you will own them. Will money dictate your worth, or will you dictate money's purpose? Will happiness control your moods, or will you command happiness through meaning, struggle, and autonomy? The Machiavellian answer is not to choose between them, but to rise above them, to stop serving wealth, to stop serving happiness, and to make both serve you. Epilogue: The Sovereign Path. Picture two men. The first is rich beyond measure, yet restless, paranoid, never content. His life is a fortress with no peace inside. The second has little wealth, yet he commands himself, finds joy in discipline, bends adversity into meaning. The first man is envied, but enslaved. The second man is underestimated, but free. Now picture a third man, the Machiavellian sovereign. He holds wealth, but hides it. He enjoys happiness, but never flaunts it. He controls desire, wields generosity strategically, engineers scarcity to sharpen joy. Both wealth and happiness orbit him, but he is bound by neither. That man does not chase illusions. He bends them into weapons. That is the path Machiavelli would prescribe. Not wealth alone, not happiness alone, but sovereignty, where both are subjugated to your will, your vision, your meaning. That is not merely survival. That is rule. And in the end, that is the only kind of power worth having.